My name is Tony. I run the growth practice here at Mucker. So if you haven't heard of Mucker before, we are an early stage venture fund all across North America, including Canada. So yeah, let me know or contact me afterwards if you have questions about Mucker. But really, the star of today's episode, if you will, is our friend Colin Belyea from Karmic. He founded Karmic as a Reddit agency, and he's got a lot to cover. We had a sneak preview of this beforehand. And so, yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Colin, welcome. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Tony. Pleasure to be here. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet you. Let's get started. My name is Colin. My background is I'm a multi-time head of growth in consumer venture-backed startups. Most of my background is on the paid media side of the house, so paid search and social. Tell me if you've ever had this experience. So, about 18 months ago, I was looking to buy in some patio furniture. So, I went to Google, like, everyone is prone to do, and I started to look up reviews for some companies I was looking at. And at first, I didn't notice that something in the search landscape was changing and kind of hinting at it here until I looked at my tabs. Suddenly, I had 30 Reddit tabs open that were served to me via Google based on searches that I was making when I was trying to understand the opinions of the marketplace, trying to understand the opinions that other people had of the idea that I was interested in. Did a little bit more digging. I'm sure you're probably aware of this too. It's not just Google. Every LLM out there is using Reddit as one of the biggest single source of citations across the board, including ChatGPT, as you can see. The deeper I dove into this topic, it made me feel like we were in the middle of a pretty massive change in the search landscape, in the way that companies are discovered, the way that companies connect with consumers. And it kind of happened to coincide with this other thing that we kind of noticed happening, which is like the blog apocalypse. I'm not sure if anyone remembers this, but basically everyone's huge content marketing investments on their blogs started to essentially, like, click-through rates started falling off a cliff, traffic started falling off a cliff, as AI tools, including AI overviews and Google, started pulling information into the search console, kind of making websites less and less relevant. As I dove, I basically convinced myself that Reddit's the biggest marketing opportunity that exists right now for most brands. There's three core reasons why. The first one is that I already kind of alluded to this. It's powering Google search and answer engines right now. You've probably heard of Reddit's partnership with Google. Google's using Reddit to train AI overviews, using it to train Gemini. Because of that, Reddit threads are ranking super high in opinion-based search. And Reddit's also the number one single source citation website that's cited by every other LLM, including ChatGPT. Because of this, Reddit's now like a big, mean, real social media platform. It's bigger than all of them, including TikTok and Instagram, all of them except Facebook. 119 million daily actives at last counting, which is just absurd. And when I started working on this, it was right around here. No, not sure if you can see my mouse. Right around like April of 2024 on that graph. And it's essentially tripled in size since then. It's not showing any signs of stopping. And because of this position that it occupies now in search and LLMs, it's inescapable in pre-purchase discovery and research. Bunch of stats here. I don't have to get into it. The most important, I think, difference is that the post-purchase experience feeds back into discovery and consideration and decision way more than basically any other social media platform, which makes it super interesting problem to think about. How do you manage the experiences of other people, maybe in your case, like earlier stage startups that have, people trying out their V1 and, it's maybe not quite up to snuff. So tons of reasons why brands are interested in Reddit right now. Why isn't it crawling with brands? The real reason is because the algorithm and the community and the culture punishes spam and self-promotion. This is actually a good thing. It's why Reddit is valuable. It's why people love it. It's why there's so much content there for basically every category. But essentially what Reddit's trying to do is it's trying to understand which accounts are spam, bots, or bad actors. And most brands jump on there trying to get quick results, and they end up getting flagged as being spam. And they end up spinning their wheels and not being able to get any reach, because Reddit will only grant you reach once you prove to the community that you are a valuable member. It's worth noting, some brands, while you're spinning your wheels, might look into workarounds. I'm here to advise you to not do that. If you use bots, if you use Karma Farms, if you buy upvotes, if you pay shadow accounts to mention your brand without disclosing affiliation, basically it's illegal via FTC since fall of 2024. Reddit has been responding to this legislation, taking down these networks. And engaging in this kind of stuff also shuts you out from some of the biggest advantages from an organic point of view that you can get by investing on Reddit. So just word warning, avoid. But it's not just SEO, AEO. Like almost every brand that comes to us is like, hey, I want to show up better in search and answer engines. I hear Reddit's important for this. Help me do that. It's a huge part of the equation. But if you execute on a strong organic Reddit program, you also unlock a ton of other opportunities. So it's not just SEO, AEO. If you do that right, you're going to accumulate karma on your account. You're going to put yourself in a position where you can start to make threads that actually drive real eyeballs towards your brand, like 5-6 figure views on single threads. Definitely possible. You can't do that if you just made an account tomorrow and decided to start promoting your brand. You have to earn your seat at the table. As you're earning that, you are building actual community trust. And I'm a performance marketer. I'm kind of allergic to these like brand ideas. Like if I can't measure it, it's not there. But when you're kind of thinking about Reddit as a platform, you have to think about the intangibles and what you're actually doing by connecting in a real way with real people who, if they're not in market now, they know a lot of people who are coming into market at some point. And the other fourth like knock-on thing is some brands, a lot of brands actually end up with like a Reddit thread where someone's kind of mad about their experience. They post about their bad experience, people pile on, and suddenly it's ranking number 2 for your branded keywords on Google. There's not a lot you can do about that in retrospect, but going forward, having a high karma, well-respected, high authority Reddit account can put you in a very strong position to be able to mitigate those threads when and if they happen, to kind of manage your brand sentiment before it gets out of control. So the opportunity is there. There's headwinds. How do brands actually take advantage of Reddit? That's what I've dedicated the last 18 months of my life to figuring out. And essentially what we've landed on is this idea that we call karma ladder. It's essentially a process where you move in conjunction with the limits that Reddit and the communities and moderators place on new accounts as you gain authority, earning your way into the next tier. So not going too far and putting yourself in a position where you get content removed, you get shadow banned, you get like outright banned, but working with the platform and the rules and the culture to put you in a position to maximize your long-term reach. I'll get into the specifics on this in a minute. You probably want to know, though, everybody asks, like, how do I know if Reddit is actually right for me? There's 2 ways that we have of thinking about this. I can help you with the Reddit analysis after I actually have a prompt. If you DM me on LinkedIn, I'll send it to you. But basically, you can analyze your brand, and you can analyze like the market on Reddit. So if you analyze your brand, basically the more consideration users go through before purchase, the better you're going to be positioned for Reddit. The bigger your addressable audience, not TAM, but actual like amount of people, the more opportunity you'll have on Reddit, because it means there's more conversation. There's likely more conversation you can tap into. And then there's the idea that I think of as the show versus tell continuum. If you are like a e-commerce physical product that, super highly indexed on video and images, Reddit's probably not the best place for you. Go to TikTok, go to Instagram. But if you need to tell people, if you need to explain, if you need to talk, if you need to write, Reddit is much more up your alley. You can also analyze Reddit itself. So basically find out how well Reddit threads are ranking in Google search for non-branded terms that you care about. So for Mucker, for example, like venture capital outside Silicon Valley, you Google that, you see if Reddit threads are popping up for that search. The more that's happening, the better position you'll be. We also have some benchmarks around industry fit. The easiest one is like consumer services and like broader market B2B, super highly aligned with Reddit in almost every case. On the farther other end, you have like luxury products and like low AOV e-commerce products. And there's a pretty big messy middle, but those are the kind of poles. And then audience alignment. So analyzing like how big is the audience of people in Reddit communities or subreddits that are aligned with the topics that your brand cares about. So for Mucker, it would be like venture capital and startup related subreddits, for example. Okay, so you can probably kind of place yourself on like a rough 0 to 10 scale, should help you kind of moving forward. Also worth mentioning, when you invest in Reddit, you have to kind of have the long game in mind. I know it's a little bit hard for some startups because you're just trying to get to your next round, but ultimately what you're doing here is building a moat that competitors won't be able to copy. It takes some time. We typically think of 4 months as the initial kind of like block of work that you need to achieve before you start getting some real like eyebrow raising threads that get 5-6 figure views on them. In the meantime, you're building up to that point to give yourself the privilege of doing it. So just to kind of level set, if I had to think about expectations. And this is kind of how we think about the timeline for rolling out the Karma Ladder across clients. And we actually publish the entire process on our website too. If you're doing it yourself, we still recommend this exact same timeline. Okay, So let's get into like the details of how this actually works and why it works. So in a nutshell, what we're trying to do is earn our spot to be able to do the next more powerful move on Reddit. So the first thing that you need to think about is when you are a new account, low karma, you just created it, Reddit's treating you with suspicion. They are concerned that you're going to be a spammer, a bot, or a bad actor. So they are going to not allow you to move very much. A lot of subreddits have minimum karma thresholds you must reach. A lot of moderators get auto flagged when low karma new accounts start posting threads in their communities. We want to bypass these restrictions without putting ourselves in danger zone of getting content removed, getting banned from subreddits, because that's going to make it way harder for us to accumulate the karma that we need to get the reach that we want. So when we say laying the foundation, what we mean is get 100 karma, age the account 30 days, make sure that you set up your account properly, and do this nowhere near your target market. Prove to Reddit that you are a real person. Go to subreddits that have low barriers to entry. Get that karma. I'll show you kind of how that works later. Once we get past that, you're 30 days old, you're 100 karma, then we can start commenting on new threads that are relevant to your ICP. When I say new, I don't mean threads posted years ago. They're going to be locked. You're not going to get any upvotes. You won't get any reach. You want to set up your notifications so that you're pulling in the right content and you're able to comment on it with value in a way that just provides value to your ICP. That's like rule number one. Give value to your ICP and you'll get rewarded with karma. As you build that karma and as you build that post history in the communities that you care about, you're going to be passing the checks that different moderators will put or different subreddits will put. So some subreddits have like explicit karma thresholds. Other ones auto flag content to moderators. They're going to see that you're a brand. But their question on their mind is going to be, are they adding more value than they're taking from my community? You need the answer to be more value. You're giving more value. Once you get there, we think of this like you can graduate from this stage at about 250 karma. You can start to create engagement threads. So this is starting threads that aren't saying, hey, come look at my product. It's trying to tap into hot button issues that pull the experiences and opinions of other people who are in your niche into a valuable resource that you've now curated, and your name is going to be all over it. And then and only then can you start to direct intent by making threads that are a bit more self-promotional. And there's a scale here too, from like lightly self-promotional to explicitly self-promotional. I'll get into some of those details after. But basically, do not skip stages, because if you do, content will get removed. You're going to accumulate black marks in your account. Reddit's going to treat you with suspicion. You won't get any reach. Okay.
Hey, Colin, for people in our audience who are a little bit new to Reddit, what is karma
Yes.
and how is it calculated?
Yes. So karma, think of this as it's a score that your profile accumulates based on the amount of likes that your content gets. So if somebody likes a post, that adds one karma to your account. If someone downvotes it, which is in Reddit, we use upvotes and downvotes. Think of it as likes and dislikes. If someone dislikes it, you lose karma. So basically, it's a proxy for the aggregated opinion of the community about you. So it's used as like, I'm using karma also as a proxy for a broader thing called CQS, which is actually the score that Reddit assigns to every account to decide where it is. But think of karma, it's the easiest one to think about. So the more value you add, the more upvotes your content gets, the more karma your account accumulates, the more reach Reddit decides it's safe to give you.
Perfect. Thank you. Cool. And just as a reminder to everyone in the audience, if you do have a question, please put it into the Q&A box just so that it's less noisy in there. Thanks.
Cool. So I'll break down each of these. I just want to touch on a couple important things to think about. So, and we just kind of talked about this, but higher karma increases your brand's reach over time. So we need to optimize for karma. That's why we're focusing on adding value, because we'll get rewarded for that over time. And the other thing to keep in mind is we can create a lot of content around the topic of our brand. It's one thing that ChatGPT is going to look at when it's referencing Reddit. It's also going to look at how many times your brand is mentioned and the character of those mentions. Aside from being a big brand with a product with a lot of usage, the best way to influence the amount of people who are mentioning you is to become known, liked, and trusted in these communities. So that's the other kind of underpinning here. If you want to influence seeded mentions, that's what we refer to influencing other people to mention you. You need them to know you, like you, and trust you. That you need to be a part of their community. These are not real numbers. This is for illustration's sake. Okay, laying the foundation. Step one. I'm going to try to be conscious of time, make sure that we have space for questions at the end. This is the most boring part, but the most misunderstood part of building a Reddit presence. You can think of it as the way that we conceptualize this is a lot of brands like they think they can't put their brand name in their handle because they're worried that they're going to get downvoted. That is a misconception based on the fact that most brands that try are actually spamming communities and people hate that. But what you don't want to be in a position is the position you don't want to be in is being forced to shoehorn your brand name into your content because people will hate that even more because it'll be making the content about you and not them. So the way that we think about it is you need to have the brand name in your handle, preferably the first word, and we like to add a person's name on it. There's a bunch of reasons why, but basically it deflects any kind of like heat that you might catch. At some point, you get more upvotes because people think you're a real person, which you are. And it also gives you a little bit more freedom to maybe speak with a little bit more flexibility than you would if this was like the official brand handle. Side note, hilariously, use a woman's name. You will get more upvotes. You will get less negative feedback. You didn't hear it from me. So yeah, when we're getting started, so we are building our account, the two things that we need to do in the beginning are, as we're kind of like getting ourselves ready, is to figure out where the content is going to be that we want to comment on. So aligning on keywords and subreddits that are highly aligned with our brand. We want to browse them daily. We want to set up alerts. There's a bunch of tools you can use for this. You're going to probably have a tune-in period for the keywords. Think if anyone knows Google Ads, think about like phrase match instead of exact match because there's just too many keywords for that and you want to be flexible. And then a method that we focus on is building a brand Reddit GPT to be able to, it's just not going to be possible to comment enough referencing your brand material, pulling in your brand voice information and optimizing it for Reddit if you just do it yourself only. You can do that, but if you're not the person that wrote every one of those blog posts and knows all of the background content, you're just not going to be able to do it. So I highly recommend building a robust like brand commenting GPT and then use it. Actually, I should say build this as you are building your karma. So this is going to be dumb, but you have to do it. Go to subreddits with low barriers to entry. There's some that are like Ask Reddit. There's a few that we've identified like r/digital nomad. Basically every pet related or animal related subreddit, music related subreddits, like think interest groups that don't have a lot of like business interest trying to get in. They will let you post with a young low karma account. We're trying to show Reddit that we are human. We're trying to show people that look at our account that we are human, and we are trying to use these comments and sometimes threads to get upvotes on the content to get ourselves to 100 karma. It's dumb. You have to do it. Don't skip it. Once you hit 100 karma, 30 days, it's time to start building authority. This is commenting on threads that are relevant to your ICP that aren't being like, hey, buy my stuff. Your ad is your handle. Your landing page is your profile. So think of the comment that you're adding as the way that you're getting your name in front of people. So just seek to add value. If you have this GPT running, you can analyze the thread to find like all the sub questions, all the opportunities to add value. If you can reference your blog with the GPT, you can kind of pull in references so that like you're always keeping aligned with the, let's call it like the intellectual property of the brand. And you basically just need to do this day in, day out until you hit 250 karma. You want to keep a spread across a good amount of subreddits because that mitigates risk in the case that eventually you get shadow banned or removed from a certain subreddit, which will happen. Some of them have extremely tight moderation around spam, and sometimes even having your name they'll call spam. In that case, find those, get banned from them. It doesn't matter. You weren't going to make it work there anyway. It's better to find out sooner rather than later. And just like work this, like figure out, like this is also a great opportunity to learn about the market and like what's going on. Use it to put yourself, or yeah, hang on. But before we use that, this is kind of the way that we operationalize this in general. I've already alluded to this, but basically GPT analyzes the thread, finds the opportunity, drafts the comment. Then you want human polish before you post for sure. You want to post from the same device, same IP, and you want to engage with sub comments. We call this engagement compounding. So if your comment gets like 3 comments and then you respond to each of them, suddenly you have 6. And Reddit's like, hey, that's good. Like, let's push this in front of more people.
Cool. Hey,
So
Colin.
that's how we think of, yes.
Sorry, there's a timely question. Someone just asked about the GPT drafting comments. Wouldn't it get flagged by Reddit? Does Reddit look for content created by AI?
So basically, no, it has not happened to us yet. That's why the human polish is an important section here. You want to edit at least a little bit, but at least for us, like our GPT process is so robust around like instructing how to write for Reddit, instructing how the brand wants to speak, that it irons out most of that stuff. I say GPT here. I prefer Claude for this, to be honest. Strongly recommend using Claude instead. But in general, like, yeah, don't skip the human polish part, but just use it for the heavy lifting of like finding the reference material, doing some searching if it needs to find like precedent or like best practice or whatever it happens to be that would make the response valuable, and run it through like your own like logical faculties plus your own kind of like creative writing faculties before it goes out. But it will save you time and it will increase the quality if you do it that way.
Great. Thanks.
Cool. Do that for 2 months. Once you're done that, come up for air. Now you can start thinking about the fun stuff. So curating the conversation, creating engagement is what we're going to do now. So we have this idea that we refer to these as engagement threads. They are threads that we are creating in the communities full of your target customer. We're trying to find the hot button issues, the emotional topics, the controversial things, the ideas that like cause the community to galvanize in camps. And we want to use that to create a conversation that gets people to respond. That's the only, the first filter is this relevant to my ICP? If yes, how do we find something that they respond to? The goal being, if you can launch these threads, they'll end up getting pretty reliably, in most subreddits, there's a lot of flexibility here depending on the community, 5 figures almost every time if you get a good one. Sometimes they'll go super viral and get like a couple 100,000 views on it. And the reason why it's valuable for the brand is because A, your name is right here. So people are associating your name with the content. You should be compounding engagement in the comments, responding, so that in the future, when you can think of a thread that gets 70,000 views in 24 hours, is going to send much stronger signal to Google search. It's going to send much stronger signal to ChatGPT. You want to be in the comments too, so that the thread is not about you, but you are clearly the creator and curator of this content. The upside is you can get a ton of upvotes, which adds karma to your account like no one's business. You'll get way more doing this than you will with comments. It's just you won't get a lot of reach on these until you've built yourself up to, in our mind, 250 karma. Do this until you hit at least 400. You might get that your first one. Probably not. It takes some practice, but just like work this for a while, figure out what people really care about. Then you can move on to directing intent. This is a fancy way of saying like draw attention to yourself, but subtly. We have 3 kinds of content that we think about for this, starting with the lowest risk, moving to the highest. The big caveat here is every subreddit has different rules. Every moderator interprets those rules differently. You just really want to be on side as much as you can. Part of the reason why we're doing these big threads is because when we try to post a thread that points to us, the moderator is going to look at your profile and see what value are they adding. And if they can see that you are creating insane amounts of conversation and a lot of views, they are going to do the quick calculation and be like, my community is better off with this brand than not with this brand. That's what you want them to be thinking. So in the beginning, think about adapting content that you already have. So this isn't about you, it's about content that you've created. We were curating, now we're creating, but it's not, hey, look at me. So this is like, sorry, it's kind of sloppily pasted together just for the size here. But like this was like a blog post that this brand had, and we adapted it to Reddit. You can add links here, like read more. We decided not to in this case, just to kind of make sure that we got more reach. That's a trade-off you'll always have to make. Doesn't get nearly as much engagement, but it gets a lot of upvotes, and that gets you a good amount of views. And by the way, we're just pulling from like a week's worth of particular examples here. Like there's a lot that run the gamut. Like we've seen threads with like 200,000 or 300,000 views on them. Like that happens semi-regularly. More risky is brand announcements. So think of this as saying, hey, we raised a round, we have a new feature, we're live in a new location, we just hired someone that everyone knows. Whatever you think about you would take to like your PR agency, you should be in a position to be able to get away with some of this now. Highly recommend making friends or like getting approval from the moderators in a certain community before you do this. It shouldn't be weird, especially if you have a strong history there. There's also a world in which you just try it and hope that people don't think that you're spamming them. Pay attention to the subreddit rules. It's totally up to you what you want to do. But this one is riskier. The highest risk, but the highest reward thing to do is to host an AMA. So that's Reddit speak for Ask Me Anything. It's essentially a live public interview with a founder, with a leader, with someone in your company that has vertical expertise. This is an example from just a couple of weeks ago. The numbers on this aren't huge, but it's a niche product in a very niche community, worth noting. So we had on one of the reading specialists. They have like an app and a tutoring for kids that are having trouble reading. So we brought in a reading specialists to talk to our dyslexia. It got 8,000 views, which is pretty good for a small subreddit. And within like a couple of days, it was ranking number 2 for brand name plus reviews. And it was being pulled into ChatGPT when I asked ChatGPT about the brand. Huge trust building opportunity, huge opportunity to just stake out real estate and to just like show people what you actually think. If you tried to do this tomorrow with a brand new account, you'll either get crickets or you'll get people who are kind of ticked off because they don't know you. This works way better when you have a presence, when you have respect, when you have authority. Also, do this in conjunction with moderators when you can. Oftentimes they'll set up like a, hey, we're hosting this tomorrow. Like you can actually like get it planned and into their kind of content calendar. You don't want to do this very often, maybe like once a year to kind of like aim to replace it over time. But there's some use cases where like if you have different verticals that you can talk about within your product, like maybe you're an AI law startup and you have like, hey, business law, consumer law, like personal, like family law, whatever, like maybe you could do a different one for each of those. Those opportunities exist as well. Okay. I have some bonus stuff. Tony, do you want me to run through it or did we want to pause for a
Yeah,
second?
let's do it. Yep.
Okay, cool. So there's like, that's the bones of the process. There's a lot of other just like best practice and kind of general things that people need to keep in mind. The first one question that comes up a lot, like how do we scale this? If you're able to get traction, like how do we make it work long term? There's 3 core things. The one is more organic accounts. So this is the other reason why we have a name on. So Mucker underscore Tony. That's because we can later add Mucker underscore Justin. And it may be a different person. It may be a different tweak to our initial prompt. Maybe we're speaking to different verticals. Maybe we have different content that we're referencing. But we try to create personas and it allows us to go out into more conversations. And it allows us to de-risk having all of our stuff on a single account. Because once you get to a certain point, you're not going to be able to post more threads because you're going to draw too much attention from moderators and you want to kind of be able to cool it when you can. The second thing is a branded or topical subreddit. A lot of people think of like their own subreddit as like the first thing when they think of Reddit marketing, but ultimately for startups, not really that interesting because in the beginning, you don't have a ton of customers. So you don't have a ton of people talking about you already. It's going to be a ghost town. The second thing is it's going to often becomes like a public support channel. So if you're not on top of it, it can make you look kind of bad. But the other opportunity of creating a topical subreddit is really interesting. It's hard to do this in the beginning because you won't know where the opportunity is. But once you're operating for a few months, you'll notice if there are gaps. The audience is not quite served well by the existing community structure of Reddit. And if you notice that, you can stake one out and make it yours. And people will be able to tell if you run it, but like only if they look into it. And ultimately, you're in control of that content going forward. So that's an interesting angle. And the other one is leveraging Reddit ads. So you can use Reddit ads to help grow your subreddit, but the kind of core use case, I think, for Reddit ads is distribute content like from your blog or whatever it is that you're using, video, whatever. Distribute that, get in front of people. You can do that at a really good rate on Reddit and remarket to those people with direct response ads. If you just go straight direct response, it's not going to work as well. It's also not going to work as well if you don't have an organic presence. They compound each other. But in general, you'll be way better at Reddit ads after doing organic because you're going to be forced to think about measurement in a way that is a little bit different. Like measuring Reddit ads, it does have a pixel, it does have a conversion API. It's not nearly as robust as Meta. And the way that users interact with Reddit is just different as well. So you kind of have to think of off-platform attribution, which is also something that everyone always asks about Reddit organic. So this is going to be dark social. You're going to have a tiny fraction of your impact is going to show up in your Google Analytics or whatever. You need to think about other ways of capturing the value. So we have 3 pillars. One is like, what does Reddit tell us? So Reddit will tell us, obviously what we're doing, karma as a proxy for value created and like future reach, host views as a just understand, like think of that as reach, right? And we also think of seeded mentions. So we want to see other people mentioning us going up over time. It takes a while to start to see that usually, especially if you're starting from 0, but it's usually not nothing. and it's kind of like a proxy for word of mouth, if you will. As far as web data, like because we're not really posting links except very seldomly, most Reddit referral traffic is going to come through people clicking your profile and then clicking out, which is going to be a tiny fraction of people that actually see your content. And you can have like a more robust LLM tool like Profound or something like that. For most clients, we just monitor their LLM referral traffic and use it as a directional proxy for understanding impact on LLM space. Although this has a lot of like confounding variables, like as soon as ChatGPT starts running ads, like this is going to drop, but it's something for now. But the most important thing is I can say this from as a performance marketer because like I love the fact that the great thing about performance marketing is you know exactly what's happening in your funnel and you can see it and you can read it and you can show it. But ultimately, it's only a small part of the story and it's basically none of the story on Reddit. You have to ask people how they heard about you. I think like beyond Reddit, this is a thing that a lot of brands I talk to are like late on. Like the way that LLMs are changing search, like zero click marketing is just becoming such a big thing right now. You have to have something like this. If you don't have it now, even if you're not doing Reddit, I'll get off my soapbox. But for Reddit, you have to have this if you want to have any idea on CAC. If you know you're going to be judged on customer acquisition costs 6 months from now, you got to have this. You got to ask people where they heard about you, and you can't ask them later after the purchase in an email because it won't work. It's not as valuable.
Cool.
Okay.
And just for people who didn't know what that acronym stood for, how did you hear about
Yeah.
us?
Sorry. How did you hear about us?
Yeah.
My bad.
No, no, that's good.
I meant to update that actually because I caught myself when I was going through this earlier today and I forgot to do it. Cool. And just a couple pitfalls and traps to avoid. I've already alluded to a lot of these. Don't go black hat. It's going to hurt you. Don't self promote too soon or too often. The whole system is built to avoid that. And don't treat Reddit rules and subreddit rules. It's easy to kind of like disregard them because like, I think Reddit has this reputation of being like, kingdom of the nerds and they all kind of like run their own communities and like they don't like outsiders and like that's kind of true, but the reason why that's there is because it protects the integrity of the community. So respect that and become a member of it rather than try to disregard it. You're going to have better results every time.
Cool.
Okay, that's it.
Awesome. We got a bunch of questions that has been coming through that we didn't get a chance to address in the lineup presentation. Let me ask this one question since we're on the slide and sort of in the vein of self-promotion, that
Mm,
bucket. Someone had asked about competitors. And so the direct question I'll ask this is, what are your thoughts about doing quote unquote guerrilla? This person's called it guerrilla
mm,
strategy, such as bad mouthing your competitors.
yeah,
I have my own personal take, would love your take on it, but let me zoom out
sure.
of that specific question and just ask about what do you do with competitive mentions in any subreddits?
Mm.
And let's take that as the question.
Are you referring to, do you mean when other companies mention you and call you out and
Actually, let's take both. So that's a great question. That's
mm,
a great thread to go down.
right.
Let's address the first one, which is if there are conversations around your
Mm,
competitors' brand names, whether it's
yes.
positive or negative, what do you
Mm,
recommend doing?
yes. So the important thing here is people who are looking up your competitors' brand names are signaling that they're in market in some way or market adjacent.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is get your name in front of them without making them think you're a jerk, essentially. That's the playbook that we use. So if there's like a strong question, like just give a real response, be even-handed, be fair, be open. Don't open yourself up to criticism because if the bottle pops off on like a Reddit battle like that, like you just don't want to get into that and people will see through it if you're respectful and you're open and honest about like your advantages and your drawbacks. You can do that. I guess like the adjacent question to this is you can bring up your product very carefully only when it's brought up explicitly. You should almost always ask people like, hey, I can DM you this, or like, hey, we do this, like send me a DM. Like that's probably the most you want to do in a comment for being self-promotional. If someone's comparing you explicitly to another competitor in a thread, I would bring it up. I would mention the brand. I'd say the risk is worth it in that case. If they're just talking about your competitor, just leave an opinion, leave it respectful and be nice. On the other hand, if you're getting smack talked, I would say you're in a much better position to defend against that if you have a high karma, high authority account. So put in the work, get yourself to that point. You can often just outrank the trolls because they don't get a ton of karma and they don't get a lot of respect. If it's like totally erroneous, like you can, I mean, you can decide how salty you want to be with it or how dismissive you want to be with it. But the important thing is don't open yourself up to additional criticism as much as you can. Those are mostly opinions. I wouldn't say there's super set in stone best practice around this.
Sure.
Just don't want to get into a war.
Okay, got it. And just to kind of double click on that last part, if your brand is getting a lot of hate for whatever reason on some of these
Mm,
threads, so is, I guess from your perspective, is your recommendation to
yeah,
engage, to ignore, to block? Like,
yeah.
what do you think?
So there's two things here. Past threads that are now dogging you because they're ranking in search. There's not much you can do about that unless you want to do some black hat stuff. You can Google it and find out there you might be able to get that removed. You didn't hear from me. I don't do that, but it's possible. Going forward, the playbook is twofold. You want to identify when it's happening in real time. You want to respond with like as much public empathy as you can while like kind of defending yourself when you need to softly. And you can it does a couple of things. You can blunt the impact of that thread. You can induce other people to not pile on as much. And if you've done the work right and you have that base, other people might jump into your defense might be more likely to jump to your defense than they would have been if you're just cold and you don't have any impact on that community. But highly advised, don't ignore it, but try not to open yourself up again to additional criticism. Try to like close the loop in the comments, address the real criticism, throw it back on them a little bit if it's like outlandish, not real kind of commentary. Be like, yeah, we don't see it that way, but like I can see what, be empathetic, like be empathetic above and beyond because people will read the tone even if they don't read the whole message. And that's kind of important.
Perfect. Do you mind flipping back to that timing roadmap slide? Because I have several questions that are kind of related to, getting set
This
up.
one?
Yes. So thank you. Yeah.
Mm,
So, and I think this is a good way to recap sort of your overall strategy for how to take advantage of Reddit. So around laying the foundation, let me just kind of bucket some of these questions together. So you covered this, but we'll reiterate it. So your recommendations around brand versus personal, what kind
mm.
of profile to set up?
Yeah, so there are successful like accounts that are started by a founder and they just become known community as being like, hey, that's the guy that runs this company. I think that works when you have like, let's call it like a high knowledge and highly accountable personality who just decides to take this on their own. But in my experience, like it's almost always falls off the priority list unless the founder has just decided to make this a thing. If it's not the founder and if they're not a Redditor on their own, highly recommend getting the brand name in there first because
Yes.
like you're not going to be able to get you just can't shoehorn your brand name into the content. And if you have a blank name and you can't put your name into the content without getting downvoted, we're not really serving our business interests here. It just doesn't it doesn't give you the right reach. Like and it closes us off from being able to create engagement that gets huge amounts of views on it that actually is beneficial to the brand. Because you could do that with the blank account, you get 200,000 views, nobody knows who you are. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. And just to kind of reiterate based off the question, so Colin suggested to create a profile with your brand name, underscore,
Mm,
and then your name. So that's the
yeah.
recommendation. And so therefore, related to that question, someone had asked about, do you recommend having multiple Reddit accounts or company name,
Mm,
just one company account and allow sharing? So it sounds like, you know,
yeah.
like the recommendation is to create an
Mm,
individual employee account, for lack of a better word, but tied to your
mm.
brand with that the way that you name it, company name underscore Colin or underscore Tony.
Yes.
Yeah.
Don't share them. Make sure that they're logged out of every device except for yours. You don't want people to accidentally open Reddit and be logging into this. Reddit does not like IP passing. It does not like device passing. It's going to hurt your reach. It's going to kind of remember how I mentioned CQS. It's kind of like Karma is a proxy for the actual way that Reddit views your account. One of the things that impacts your CQS is this account security, essentially. Like there are signals that Reddit associates with spammers, and that is one of them. Don't do that. If you have multiple people, create multiple accounts. But in general, you want to consolidate in the beginning at least because I'd much rather have 1,000 karma account than 10 karma or 10 100 karma accounts.
Yeah.
But gets to a point where like if there's more content than you can possibly address that's relevant to your brand, that's a pretty good opportunity to scale up. Not every brand will have that much. Like you might be able to cover yourself with like a couple hours a week, depending.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So to answer the audience members' questions, so don't share accounts and make sure you're retaining the same IP and device. Question still related to foundation laying. Are there any recommendations for how to set up a profile? Are there certain things that you recommend,
Mm,
including links to your website in
yeah,
the profile? Like what do you
sure.
any recommendations?
Yeah. There's two ways to think about this. We think of it as like the downside of making the profile brand focused is fine. Like not many people are going to make it there, and if they do make it there, we want to try to at least impose a little bit of the brand point of view and the brand value prop on them. We mostly focus on making it brand focused. I think in the bio, if you're a real person and that's your real name, like mention something about yourself, that's good. If you can try to make it like first person instead of like third person, like we do this. If you make like, hey, I do this at this company, we do this, like that's better. But definitely like fill your links up. The most important one is linked to the website. I wouldn't worry that much about like links to other social platforms.
Got it. Cool.
But try to make sure you get your value prop in the bio profile. Usually we do logos, but like if you want to put your face with a logo or something like that, I think that's okay. But part of like if you get 100,000 views on a thread, like it's good to get your logo in front of those people. Think about it from that perspective. Background image, don't put any text on it. Just make it like thematic because the way that mobile and desktop interact, it kind of covers up most of it in a lot of placements.
Cool. Awesome. And so that's foundation laying on month one. And I can't recall if you put it under foundation laying or authority building, but essentially
Mm.
when you're just getting started off, your recommendation is just to like, upvote, or upvote comment on other people's threads and subreddits, right? And you even recommended
Uh,
commenting on,
Almost,
you know,
yeah.
your business related like pets and stuff like that. That's all part of the foundation and authority building.
Yes. So like we could break it down like week by week. Like the first week, like don't post much, just act like a real person. But then start commenting on any thread that you think is about to pop off. Usually we sort by new and try to find threads that we think are going to get a lot of views on them and try to get a good comment before a lot of them end up there. So for example, you could go to Ask Reddit subreddit, sort by new, look for interesting questions that you think are going to get people talking, and just respond honestly as a human. It has nothing to do with your brand. You might get one upvote, you might get 30, and you're a third of the way there to getting your 100 karma. We're proving to Reddit we're a real person. We're proving to people that might visit our post history that we're a real person. And we are avoiding sticking our foot in it in the communities that we're going to depend on once we're up and running. The
Yeah.
thing that we really want to avoid is having a young low karma account post something in the subreddit that we really care about and get shadow banned. It's going to hurt your reach, and then suddenly a big part of the community is off limits to you.
Perfect. Okay.
But
And
that's
then
that's all in month one. We're doing this day one to day 30.
great. And then could you do a quick recap on month two, authority building?
Yes. So this is starting to comment on threads that are relevant to your ICP in
Yep.
real time. So your ideal customer for Mucker, it's, I guess, founders not in Silicon Valley who are looking for funding. Just to use an example, go set keyword alerts for threads for keywords that are related to raising seed, maybe seed, Series A, angel, pre-seed, whatever other kind of keywords, and then go and browse like r/venture capital every day, for example. Look for threads where your perspective might be valuable, and then focus your comments on just adding value. That's all you're doing. You are not saying, Mucker's the best VC around. You're saying this is how you should think about structuring your term sheet or whatever the question happens to be, right? The authority building is other people who notice will respect it. You'll get upvotes, you'll get karma, and then that karma becomes your door opener to more advanced moves a little bit later.
Perfect. And then kind of related to commenting, you brought up, or you kind of touch upon this, which is links or no links. So if you have specific
Yeah,
content that is addressing, let's just say a question or is
yeah,
pertinent to a thread and it's on your blog, do you
yeah,
recommend just grabbing the summarization of your blog post and posting in there with a link to read more,
yeah.
or grab the whole thing, or just simply link to your blog?
It depends on the subreddit's rules. The safe way is never link anywhere, even if it's not your website. You can say like, hey, Google Mucker blog. topic. Like literally, that's something that we do sometimes because like some people will do it. As soon as you post a link, it's going to reduce the reach in basically every case, even if it's topically relevant. Reddit wants to keep you on platform. It's the same with the ad. It's the same with the ad platforms. Like you get charged a CPM for taking people off platform. They don't want that because they want to be able to put more content in front of you. So play with the algorithm in that way. That's kind of why we have the long game here. And ultimately, if you link to yourself, like you're opening yourself up to getting downvoted, especially if you don't have a ton of authority yet.
Okay.
Some subreddits explicitly say, hey, yeah, you can link, experiment, like kind of log what each subreddit that you care about will allow. Some of them will very explicitly say, like, do not link, do not self promote, do not do anything like this. And yeah, you better listen because you only get one chance.
Yeah, perfect. And then this is kind of related to understanding karma. Someone was asking, is there negative karma?
Mm,
So, when you get downvoted,
yeah.
and I
I
assume,
believe it just goes to zero, but if you're above zero and you get downvoted, like it will remove karma from you. So if you do well for a few months and then you start like acting the fool, like you'll get people will let you know and it'll hurt you.
got it. Okay. A couple more questions related to the profile, setting up your profile. So
Mm,
one, actually, I'm not aware of this particular setting, but someone asked, should you show your comment history in your profile or not? Do
mm.
people need to see your non-relevant comments? I didn't even know that
Yeah,
was.
so we typically lean on hiding during the foundation laying period and turning it on once we start commenting on relevant threads. Because ultimately, what people in a music subreddit think about the Mucker Capital Reddit account matters very little. But once we start interacting with our ICP, we want to get we don't want to hide the ball because then we'll be treated with suspicion.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. And then also related to profile. So we have several people in the audience who have had an existing Reddit profile that they've had some,
Mm,
engagement with, and it was under their own personal account, if you will. Do you
mm,
recommend that they somehow pivot their existing personal account to their company one?
mm.
Do you recommend that they set up a new account? Do you recommend that they just change the name of the profile to what you recommended? What would
Yeah,
you recommend?
I would say that it depends on two things: how high is your karma, and like how active have you been?
Hmm.
If you used it in college and you haven't touched it for a few years, but you have 1,000 karma, I would say start over because that basically you have like performance decay. Like Reddit will,
Yeah.
if you start posting suddenly after not using it, they're going to think that someone like stole your account essentially until you rebuild that karma. So like I would pay attention to that. If your
Yeah.
account is mostly business focused and you are actively using it, I would say like lean into that as much as you can if you have like a decent amount of karma. If pushed to respond, I would say if you're over 400 karma, stick with it. If you're under, just start over. If you're over 400 karma, you can kind of just skip the engagement creating phase and just focus on the other stuff. It closes you off from the real reach, but you won't really be able to get that if your brand name's not in your handle.
Yeah. Got
On
it.
the other side, like you will be treated with a little bit more, like the more you seem like a real person, you probably will get more upvotes on your content, which will help you with your karma. So there's a little bit of a nice trade-off there, but it comes with some downside trade-offs.
Yeah. And this is a more of a niche question, but I'll just ask it since it's kind of related to this topic. We have an audience member who's like a consultant, okay? And this
Hmm.
person has a profile with a pretty high karma, 5,000 plus. So
Hmm.
do you recommend that this person create a new account for each new client then, or should he use his, general, like his main account with a lot of karma to support his clients?
Right. So if you don't disclose that you're being paid by the brand to promote for it, you will be in violation of the FTC fake reviews and testimonials decision. I know this because we used to do this, and when the decision came down, we fired all our clients and rebuilt the agency from scratch.
Yeah.
It's only legal stuff aside, Reddit is moving to become compliant with this as much as possible. They're only getting better at finding this stuff out. I There's a high likelihood that your investment goes to zero at some point. So it kind of depends on your risk calculation. It might be fine. You might get busted and they all go to zero. So yeah, you got to make a decision that works for you on that front.
Got it. A few more questions and then we'll wrap up. Several people had asked if there are certain consideration or specific approaches if you were a B2B brand versus a B2C
Mm.
brand. outside of, your profile setting up your profile.
Yeah. I would say the one thing that I didn't talk about, which is something that you may want to layer in here, is thinking about like the content to DM pipeline. You got to be careful with like you can't like mass DM on Reddit. It's gonna hurt your account. But if you're offering niche advice and it's like, let's say like again, if it's like the founder who knows everything there is to know about this topic and they're the ones who are commenting on it, like direct people to your DMs. Like if the deal size is high enough that it makes sense that you guys are already doing like cold outreach either on email or LinkedIn, then it could make sense to try that on Reddit as well. The problem is you just don't have the same enrichment. So the enrichment is going to be like the content that's being talked about, and you got to intuit things about them. You got to intuit things based on what people tell you rather than who you think they are. But I've heard a lot of stories of I heard one today of this guy that has like a $700,000 a year side hustle, just like helping introduce small businesses to PE companies, for example, just through Reddit DMs. So there's definitely opportunity there. I would say that the further the content production is from like the person that knows everything, the less that's going to be helpful.
Hmm. Okay. And then on the topic of creating your own subreddit, so it sounds like you recommend not doing that until later on once you start to engage with the existing ones. What about if there are not that many subreddits in your market being discussed?
Mm,
Do you even if you
yeah.
don't have, a high amount of karma, would you recommend starting that subreddit yourself?
Well, it's very low risk to just reserve the name. So if like you see an open opportunity, like dumb example, let's just say that you find like a programming language that doesn't have a subreddit.
Mhm.
Just reserve that. It might be valuable someday, even if you don't develop it. It might develop on its own without your input. That would be like, product market fit, I guess, on this front. In general, like the reason why we don't advise starting a subreddit right away, either brand or topic, is because you probably don't know where the opportunity is and you might miss it. You might pick the wrong one. You
Mhm.
will know engaging for a few months, like every day, like it will become obvious and then you'll make the right decision. The thing with subreddits is that like you're taking on a ton of work. You're going to have to moderate, you're going to have to try to seed content, you're going to have to like develop it. It's there are cases where it just takes off on its own, but like it's it's more work than running your own account, especially if it gets to the point where it's actually like growing on its own. So I hesitate to do that as like a first step because like it's real easy to just do that and then it becomes too much and then you don't end up getting a lot of the advantages that you're actually looking for.
Yeah, cool. And then on that note, I'll just ask one last question and then we'll wrap up, which is a question around how much time do you feel a
Mm.
busy startup founder should spend on Reddit?
Mm.
It's
I
kind of,
would say outsource as many parts of the process as you can. For example, like finding the right threads to comment on would help a lot if someone else can do that for you. If you
Mhm.
can build a system that references existing ideas that are already on paper, that can help a lot. Instead of time, like the way that we kind of think about this is most our two packages for brand accounts are either 30 or they start with 30 or 50 comments a month. You usually don't want to do more than that in a single account because you might draw a little bit of undue attention to you too early. That's one thing to avoid. The other thing is that there's only so much like good depends on your niche. There's only going to be so many like good threads on a given day or a given week that you can really add a lot of value to. And you probably want to be a little bit selective when you can. Every market's different. It's hard to say. But think of it if you can like leave a comment or two every day for the first few months, that would be a pretty good place to start. How long that takes, kind of how long is a piece of string? Depends on the questions, depends on how robust your answers have to be.
Cool. So let's wrap up. My answer to that question is this is why we partner with great people like Colin and Karmic. So if you are a Mucker portfolio company, you could definitely reach out to Colin through the founder portal. We have a special agreement with them. So definitely reach out to Colin. Even if you're not part of Mucker's portfolio, definitely reach out to Colin via his website. I'm sure you could find him on LinkedIn as well and direct message Colin there also. So, yes. And then Colin is nice enough to offer some of his guides. Again, we are recording this and we'll make the recording as well as these slides available. And it will be published on our blog, Mucker's blog, and probably sometime next week. So you guys will get a link to this. So the ultimate guides and stuff like that, well, you'll get your hands on it by sometime next week. But regardless, feel free to reach out to Colin if you need help, whether or not you are a Mucker Portco. He's obviously an expert in the space, so encourage you guys to reach out. I think there's another final slide after this, if you don't mind flipping to it. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, we didn't get the chance to update this.
Sorry.
So if you
I'll
are
update it.
Mucker Portco, again, reach out to Colin via the founder portal. He has a specific profile under the Mucker Perks section, or you guys could just reach out to Colin via his website or LinkedIn. If you are interested in being a part of Mucker's portfolio by either through our accelerator program, apply to our website, apply on our website, or if you're simply looking for, seed or Series A funding, you could just submit your company and pitch our team through the website. So go to mucker.com to do that. If you have any more questions related to Reddit or marketing or growth in general as a Mucker Portco, feel free to reach out to our queue. We do these about once a month or so. We're taking a break in December because of the holidays, but we routinely cover topics that pertain to startup founders. And yeah, if there's a certain topic you would like us to cover in a future session, just shoot us an email. I want to thank everyone for joining us today. Special thanks to you, Colin, for sharing your knowledge with us. This was a very engaging session and topic, as I could tell with a lot of the questions that came through. And fortunately, we weren't able to get through all of them, but I just want to thank you again for taking time and thank you all for joining us. We'll see you in the next session starting next year. So thanks, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.